What's going on, guys? Tom from Team Paradigm here, coming at you with my first place OTS Championship deck profile. Now, I know it's only an OTS Championship and normally they are smaller events and you get sort of less rounds overall, but I wanted to showcase the deck that I played because I think the story that I have kind of showcases the power level of this deck. Now, I built this deck the night prior and had a couple of test matches. It wasn't anything crazy, and I was playing against Labyrinth of all things. I wasn't playing against any of the meta decks or anything like that. Shout outs to Toby, by the way. He's an absolute G for obviously helping me out with this. But I ended up going completely undefeated. I played 5 matches and I 2-0'd everyone. I went 10-0, which that's got to mean something, right? I don't think that's my caliber as a player. I genuinely think this very well could be the best deck of the format. So without further ado, I will get into the profile. I'll just quickly go through my matchups actually. Round 1 was Rescue Ace. Round 2 was, if I can remember off the top of my head, Dragon Link. Round 3 was Virtual World. It was the guy that topped the UK Open, so shout outs to you. Round 4 was Drytron. Droll wins that very easily. And then the final round was against the Bestial Synchro deck, the runic one with the branded cards. It was very cool. I was able to outgrind him though, which this is a combo deck, and I was able to outgrind the control deck, essentially, the weird combo control deck. Again, that's got to say something. But as you can see here, it's obviously Infernoble Night, and you'll tell by the title of the video. I'll get straight into the deck now. So starting off with the 2 best engines in the deck, 3 copies of Neospace Connector and the 1 Aqua Dolphin, and then the absolute reason that this deck is so insane is the Sinful Spoils package. This card lets you play through so much. When I first was building the deck, I was maybe deciding you could probably get away without playing this engine. Maybe play something like the Battling Boxes, which I do think is a very good supplementary engine if you are playing on a budget. However, to play through those hand traps a lot and to be able to have a really strong grind game, these cards are absolutely fucking insane. There's not really much else I can say. Like, this just gets you to everything. This is what allows you to make Apo. Like, this plus this gets you to Appaloosa Charles Baron or Appaloosa Double Charles Gearfried. There's just so much that you can do with it. It's absolutely crazy. On to the namesake of the deck, the Infernoble Knights. We have 1 Ogia, 1 Turpin, 1 Magius, 1 Morgus, 1 Oliver, 1 Ricciardetto, and then I opted to play 2 copies of Renaud. Now, these ones are all self-explanatory. You pretty much always play them at 1. Ogia, you can kind of argue not playing at 1, you could maybe play it at 2 because it is a pretty okay normal summon, but to be honest, any of these suffices your normal summon because you have so many ways to search these guys as well as the other warriors in your deck. The reason we play 2 Renaud is because of the follow-up that it gives you. It means you're not having to kind of focus after your turn 1 combo. You're not having to try and focus on getting to the Morgus in the grave to recycle it. You can put other things back and you do still have that second Renaud that you can search and summon. It came up quite a lot and I'm very, very glad I played that over. I believe I cut 1 Veiler for it, so. Onto the honorary Infernobles, the extra Fire Warrior extenders. We played the 1 Gearfried, the 1 Red Layer, and the 1 Fireflint Lady. I actually kind of miss playing multiples of both of these, as well as the Gearfried, because having a negate early is really nice, but you don't have the space, to be perfectly honest, and you don't really need it when you have the power to just play through so many hand traps. This is more for being able to rip cards out your opponent's hand more easily with the connector, and it also gives you follow-up something to search off Isolde. Same with the Fireflint Lady, and then you get this off of your combo anyway, so it's not the end of the world not playing more than 1. It's just something that I've thought about and I would maybe consider doing over sort of maybe another sort of couple of locals worth of testing and things like that. Next up is the Noble Knight spells, things like that. The 3 Museum and the 1 Terraforming, I think this is correct. I know I've seen a couple of lists that weren't playing Terraforming. I think everyone's kind of getting on the hype train now, just because of how good the Museum is. Yeah, there's not really much else to say, to be honest with you. This card not being once per turn, just what were Konami thinking, honestly? And then the 3 Heritage of the Chalice, this can also search any Noble Arms card, so it does in fact add the Museum, so you do have 7 copies of it in the deck, but more often than not you are trying to search the equip spells or use it as a rotor, which obviously we are also playing one of here. Speaking of the equip spells, we play 2 Durandal, 1 Almace, 1 DDR, 1 Angelica's Angelic Ring, and 1 Divine Sword of Phoenix Blade. These cards were all really good to me all day. Almace is obviously like one of your combo pieces, but it also just allows you to get to Durandal, which is also another searcher. And then DDR, obviously part of the combo, but also just a really, really insane card to have. There are certain lines where you don't even need to use this, so you can keep it for later in the turn. There was once or twice where I actually just returned an SP that I'd banished like one of my opponent's cards with, so I just like return it, I have the SP back. Feels really good. It just adds a lot more pressure into the situation. And then Angelica's Angelic Ring. My god, people did not read this card all day. This card is insane. Against the Drytron player, shout outs to Brad again, he's one of our local guys. He activates the Meteonis Drytron. Pretty sure I think he thought it resolved, and I was like, yeah, that resolves. He goes to pick up his deck and I'm like, Angelic Ring. He was like, you didn't activate it, and it doesn't activate, it just applies on resolution. This card is crazy. And also the targeting protection actually comes up, as well as it being a time card. You do game 5, which is kind of nice. However, if you do need to pay for the Noble Arms museum, doesn't really work out, but I digress. Onto the rest of the deck is just hand traps. I found hand traps to be better, and I was taking a lot of the advice from Pack in the way that he played his hand traps. Again, I did just cut that Veiler down to 2 to cover that second Renaud. I didn't want to play 45. I thought 44 was a really good number. So yeah, I ended up just banging down on the Veilers, which was fine. I still ended up seeing, you know, having 5 negates for the Turbulence in the Rescue Ace matchup, for example, is still really good. Still have a higher chance of seeing the cards. And obviously the FTK versus most of the crazy combo decks right now, as well as Ash, which is just good in the standard matchups. As for the deck, 44 cards in the main. I know, I'm sorry, DB Grinder, you're not loving to see it today, apparently. Next on to the extra. For the Link ones, we play 1 Anima, 1 Link Spider, and the 2 Charles. This is all pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, this is for the Nibiru token with your Sinful Spoil stuff. And the Anima is just very good at being able to, obviously, to bait things, poor card placement and things like that. But on top of that, it lets you make SP. This was something I did consider cutting, but it did come up for me once or twice over the course of the tournament. So I'm glad I didn't cut it. I'm glad I didn't really make any changes to the extra. It really worked out for me quite well. Next for the Link 2s, the SP Little Knight, the Ferocious Flame Swordsman, and 2 copies of Isolde. Now, I know a lot of people are moving on to the 2 SP hype train. Don't think it's necessary. The Link Arrow is actually very important, I found out. When you are just doing your 1 card combo with Connector, you don't really have too much extension to get to a Link Arrow or to get to the Charles before you have to link off your SP. So I found that just being able to make this is really helpful, and it gives you that extra Link Arrow. And it did come up for me over the course of the tournament. So I don't know, I'm not saying I'm directly right, but I do feel like it does have a lot of value in this deck, and I think it's very underrated right now in terms of what the card actually offers. And lastly, we played the Appaloosa. This is very standard. I don't really need to go over this. Onto the Exceeds monsters. We play 1 copy of Dempsey, 1 copy of Typhon. Typhon is stinky, man. I love this card so much. My round 2 versus the Dragon Link player, ending on Borderland Dragon. It's a very difficult card to out in this deck, and having this, I mean, you can also play Access Code Talker, but that does force your battle phase. I feel like this is still really good to just out stuff, and especially the way I played it is I actually had a Dempsey and an Appaloosa on field that I used to negate with already, so this was a highest attack monster. I still had my interruptions up, just slapped this bad boy on top and was able to kind of control the board state from there, which was really nice. But I digress. This card's stinky. This card's great. I think it's either this or Access Code, but to be honest, I prefer this just because of the utility that it offers. It does mean that I can still go to I can still kind of play and not have to commit a ton of stuff. To summon an Access Code, I can just summon this, and then we have obviously the Dempsey, which is part of the your standard combo. And then lastly, we just played the 5 Synchros as normal: the Angelica, the Roland, the Charles, and the Baron. not really much to say here. I know a lot of people like to play 2 of the Roland or 2 of the Angelica. I get it, it does come up, but to be honest, I never really missed it. Even in those grind games, you have a lot of main deck power cards, as well as obviously the other extra deck utility that you have. I think it's all very strong. I think it's all really, really good, so I don't want to cut anything for the second Roland or anything like that. Yeah, like I said, again, it all worked out really well for me. And I never really had any issues. I never really missed anything. I tell a lie. I did miss the second SP once, but it was the same game where the Ferocious Flame Swordsman came up, so I'm not too upset at the fact that I didn't play a second SP. It was more just, if I had it, it would have been nice. Onto the side deck. Now, I pretty much copied Pack's homework. It is the 3 copies of Nibiru, 3 copies of Droll, even though it is very generic. Of course, this is very generic choices. They're kind of the catch-all hand traps for the rest of the decks in the format. They're a bit more specific in terms of certain matchups, so pretty standard to play. I don't think I'd ever play a list without these. At the moment, anyways. And then I also played 1 copy of Shifter. Now, this was because of my locals specifically. This can be any other card you want. It doesn't have to be Shifter, but obviously this deck does lose to Shifter pretty badly. And if you're not playing a card like Baguska, you don't really have a plan B. So the best thing we can do is play 1 copy of Shifter and 3 copies of Crossout Designator alongside a Called by the Grave. This didn't come in for me in the end. This never had to come in for me because I was never going first. And going second, you want to just try and use your engine to break the board. You don't want to be drawing a kind of, not a dead card per se, but cards like this that aren't really gonna do much. I mean, I played through Draw quite a lot. Going first is when you want to be kind of using these. Same thing with this. But the plan is obviously, I say obviously you guys don't know my locals, but there were a few Fluanderese players there. There are some Canadian players as well, and I know they play Shifter, so that's kind of the argument as to why I played this. And these are just, again, to protect yourself from hand traps. And then for the last 4 cards on the side, we played the 1 Duster and 3 copies of Evenly Matched. Now, this was originally the Fenrir package. I did like the Fenrir package, but I don't think it really advanced much in terms of your gameplay. Obviously, you do get those slow grind games, but I do feel like this deck has the inherent ability to be able to grind without the need of something like Fenrir. So I opted to not play it, and I decided to play these instead, which are just crazy board breakers. Being able to resolve this against any of the decks that don't really have negates, which is most of the format right now. You're pretty much just winning on the spot. So having those instant win buttons and then being able to set up your own board is pretty cracked, if I do say so myself. But that's it for the profile. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. If you have any comments, any questions, please do leave them down below. If you like the video, leave a like. If you want to see more content from us, it's not very regular at the moment. We are trying to upload more often, but please do subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that cringe YouTube stuff that most people do. And yeah, shout outs are to Geek Retreat Chelmsford. Shout outs to obviously the team. Shout outs to Tyler for helping me test. Shout outs to Toby for helping me test as well. Shout outs to my round 1 opponent as well. There was a bit of a rulings discrepancy, and I feel like I was in the wrong, so again, massive apologies to you, man. That's it. Thank you so much, guys. Take care.